Am I the a-hole for refusing to help my sister with her child custody case? My 37 female sister, 30 female, is in the process of divorcing her husband of 3 years. The divorce has taken a messy turn, and they're battling for custody of their toddler. My sister and I haven't spoken in nearly 6 years because she accused me of using her identity to get an apartment when I was in active alcoholism. I'm now in long-term sobriety, but at the time I told her I didn't do it, and she refused to believe me. She tried to have me arrested, but the apartment complex's video surveillance showed it was actually someone she didn't know who had stolen her identity from a place she used to work. She never apologized to me for accusing me of this, and she had told everyone and anyone who would listen that I had done it. However, when she realized it wasn't me, she still didn't backtrack or tell anyone otherwise. Fast forward to now. I'm sober for a few years, and my partner's sister is one of the top-rated family law lawyers in our area. The lawyer my sister currently has is terrible, and she lost custody of her daughter today. My mother called and said my sister called my sister-in-law, but she won't take her case because she doesn't feel comfortable knowing how it would make me feel, or not knowing. My mom wanted me to call sister-in-law and tell her that my sister needs help and to please take her case. I told her no, and that is not my responsibility to help her. I have never met my niece because my sister refuses to be around me even still. She got mad and said I'm an a-hole because I should be willing to help despite our past. For me, it feels like it's not a past at all, and still very much the present. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. May I make a suggestion? Call your sister-in-law and tell her that you appreciate the way she handled your sister. Let sister-in-law know that you'd prefer her not to take the case. And if anyone in your family calls her and tells her otherwise, they're lying. I will tomorrow. My sister-in-law has been such a wonderful support. I'm so thankful for her friendship and sisterhood. You're correct that I should contact her tomorrow. Not the a-hole, but info. What did she do to lose custody? She was caught with a DWI last month. Ex-husband called for emergency temporary custody and got it. Today they went to court and full custody was granted to the father. Not the a-hole. Congrats on your sobriety. Your sister has severed her relationship with you. It has been years. Why would you put in a good word for her? Your sister is still actively shunning you. You haven't met her kid. Your mother is wrong. Also, your sister-in-law is not the only good family law lawyers around. Why pick your sister-in-law? If she lost custody and your sister-in-law was her attorney, somehow it would be your fault. I'm assuming that your sister uses her married name. Your sister-in-law wouldn't have known she was her sister. Did your sister try to use your connection with your sister-in-law to get a discount or some other favor? I think your sister-in-law sounds great. I also think that she dodged a bullet and your sister would be a horrible client. My mom said she did call and tell sister-in-law who she was, that she was my sister. That's how sister-in-law knew because I have confided in her my past. She knows everything I've done, good and bad, and knows that I didn't do that bad thing I was accused of. My sister-in-law is a gem, and you're very right. Thank you kindly. Edit. Thank you all very much. I still question myself and my intentions a lot, since I got sober and started making changes to be a better person. It helped to hear everyone say the things I was thinking. I appreciate all the feedback very much. Much love. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not punishing my brother for cheating on his wife? My brother Jake has been with his wife Kate since high school, now separated. They have 2 kids that are both my godkids, and me and him are basically best friends. Our sister Claire has been friends with Kate since middle school. We're each other's maid of honors and still very close. In the last 6 months, Jake confided in me that he fell for his coworker and let things slip into physical affair. I encouraged him to tell Kate and be honest about it so to not live a lie. He told her. She was originally in denial and wanted to work through things, but Jake said he'd be lying to himself and they are now in the midst of divorce proceedings. He and a coworker are now in a relationship. When I met her, I'll admit it was weird seeing him with someone else, but they weirdly seemed like the most compatible couple I've ever met. They have way more in common than he ever did with Kate. They look at each other with such admiration. And despite how it started, I honestly think they could be together forever. I know I could be wrong there, but that's my hunch. So Jake and I are still really tight. We recently took our kids to a festival together this weekend. Just me and my kids and him and his. No partners. We had a great time, and he was telling me how happy he's been, and the kids seem to be adjusting to it much better than expected. I know it's all a process, but I'm glad he's doing well, and I'm glad to have him in my life. Well, our sister Claire is mad that I'm still hanging out with Jake. She's saying how she can't believe I have the audacity to approve of him being with a mistress. and that I should be trying to convince him to try to work things out with Kate, who is apparently still hoping for that. Or I should be no contact with him until he realizes how wrong he is and makes things up to her. Am I the a-hole for staying tight with him, helping him a little financially till the divorce/child support situation is figured out, and supporting his new relationship that seems to make him happy? I feel bad for Kate and all, but I just feel like they're a case of people who got married too young, and now he found someone who's a better fit for him. Edit. Regarding the child support. Kate makes about double him, and her job involves a ton of travel to where she's gone about 75% of the time. Has been a primary caretaker of the kids most of their lives. She doesn't want a new job post-divorce, so he will continue to have primary custody. Of course, that means the other parent who makes more will pay child support. It's for the kids. He's not pursuing alimony for himself. Your brother was selfish and blew up his family the worst way possible. That's going to have repercussions and fractures. You don't need to punish him, but it is kind of gross he's riding off into the sunset with his new side chick, while his ex is deeply mourning. Don't condone it, but it is not your job to punish him. Going not the a-hole, but with some strong ick. I think the gross thing is trying to manipulate the brother back into a loveless marriage. The end game isn't just to get him to break up with a mistress, but to take back his ex-wife. Why? Because it's convenient for her? He doesn't love her, and familial shaming won't fix that. He's not an a-hole for leaving, he's just an a-hole for not having the balls to do it sooner and cheating. But they weirdly seemed like the most compatible couple I've ever met. They have way more in common than he ever did with Kate. They look at each other with such admiration, and despite how it started, I honestly think they could be together forever. I know I could be wrong there, but that's my hunch. Almost every relationship starts out this way. It's a young relationship, and they're still in the honeymoon phase when things are new and exciting. You didn't mention any major issues your brother had with his ex, and that left her solely because he wanted to get some action. That is so unbelievably selfish, especially since he has 2 kids. In a couple months or years when that initial flame burns out, your brother will probably look back with regret for destroying his family for short-term gratification. OP's comments make it even worse. His brother blames his ex, the breadwinner, by a far margin, for the fact that he cheated, since she was working all the time, but now he's going after her for financial support. So she's off working and making most of the money needed to support the family. He starts an affair, cheats on her for a while, finally ditches her to run off with a mistress, blames her, and now he wants to use the money she was making to build a comfortable life for him and a side chick. If she's working all the time, does that mean that he dropped his kids off somewhere so that he can bang his mistress? Anybody who is able to do that is a terrible person, and I see why the sister thinks so poorly of OP as well. The kids apparently spent a lot of time over at OP's house. OP mentions this in a reply. So not just somewhere, he was probably dropping them off with OP, who if so, wasn't just keeping quiet about the cheating, but actively enabling it. Next story. Am I the a-hole because I want to separate our funds if my husband continues to let his 22-year-old daughter live at home rent-free without doing anything or starting a life? I, Sarah, 38 female, and my husband, Josh, 40 male, have been together for almost 15 years. Josh has a daughter, Lori, who is almost 23. I've been in her life since she was 5. Lori came to live with us when she was 16 and ended up staying with us until graduation. I actually enjoyed having her around. It made house feel more complete. However, Lori has always had a mean streak, which I've kind of brushed off thinking is just some teenage angst. Lori's mother is manic-depressive, and there's a concern that Lori might carry this as well. But nobody really wants to discuss it openly. Lori doesn't talk to anyone in the house, preferring to spend her days in a room playing video games until it's time for work. When she does emerge, there's this palpable tension and she often appears annoyed. We get one-word answers and feel like we're walking on eggshells. She does have a part-time job that she seems to like, but she has admitted it's not a long-term career goal. As her stepmom, I've never set rules or imposed consequences. My husband wanted to handle his daughter's issues himself. The only thing I requested is that she helps with the dishes on the days she doesn't have a car, as I have to drive her to work and pick her up. She never pays for gas, and when I ask her to do the dishes, she just leaves them. If she makes coffee, it's enough for 4 people, but she never replaces what she uses. My husband usually ended up doing the dishes to avoid any confrontation. He doesn't want to enforce rules on her either, saying she's an adult and he can't make her do anything. This has been going on for 4 years, and it's causing tension in our marriage. So I asked my husband if we could start separating our finances. I suggested that if he wanted to continue taking care of Lori, then I would give him the money needed for bills and keep the rest for myself. This didn't go over well, and we're currently not speaking. I'm even considering staying with my cousin until we can resolve this, but it doesn't seem like it's going to happen soon. Am I the a-hole here for wanting to separate our finances because of this situation with Lori? Any advice or insights would be appreciated. Thanks. Edit. Lori has had her own car since February of this year and is paying for her own gas. Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. My partner is 24 years old with bipolar and is a teacher. Bipolar doesn't make you an a-hole or lazy. It's time for her to grow up, get some help, and start paying her own bills. You should definitely stop giving her rides to work and make her figure out her own day-to-day matters. She's an adult according to your husband. Time to act like one. This. Tell your husband that according to him, she's an adult, and therefore it's not your responsibility to support her financially. He's cuddling her, and that's his choice. But you and your money don't have to be a part of that. The most important part of being an adult is telling the people you live with that they can't make you do dishes. Or them understanding that doing the dishes and paying for groceries is a prerequisite for her to keep living under their roof. Not the a-hole. It's time for Lori to get a wake-up call and realize that not everyone is going to support her financially forever. It sounds like she needs more responsibilities. Could you work out something where she pays her part of the phone bill or at least pays for gas? She's clearly making money, so some of that should be going towards you guys for supporting her other financial needs. I had to do this, and it honestly helped me get prepared for the big world. 100%. Laura's disrespecting OP in her home and her father is enabling it. Why does she need to financially support her on top of that? She's an adult and can take responsibility for her actions. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my husband he's an idiot and threatening to divorce him for co-signing on a $1 million home that isn't ours? My husband, 38 male, and I, 39 female, have been happily married for a little over 2 years. We own a home and do quite well for ourselves financially. He generally maintains the finances for our family. My husband's mother and sister live a few hours away, and I have always felt they were very abusive towards him. They speak down to him, disrespect him, and essentially make him feel as if it's his responsibility to clean up their financial mishaps and their poor choices. Now to the AITA part. My husband's sister and mother have been renting a home from another family member well under market value, at least $3,000 less than what it would rent for now. The owner of family member has decided to sell the home. Mind you, it has been trashed and not maintained by the sister and mother. They have little to no respect for the fact that they have had it so good for so long. The owner gave them 90 days to vacate the premises. Immediately, the sister and mother began asking my husband to help them buy a home. They live and work in one of the most expensive housing markets in the US. Additionally, they do not qualify for the type and amount of loan they would need to even buy a modest home in the area. Lower credit score, no major assets, etc., and they refuse to move to a more affordable area. After a lot of back and forth, they finally asked my husband to go sign on a very basic older home that costs $1 million. My immediate reaction was to tell them absolutely not, and I voiced my concerns to my husband. He is usually very level-headed and financially savvy, but I had to be the one to push him and his family for some sort of plan of how this would all work. To go from paying $1,000 a month in rent to well over $6,000 a month on a mortgage, not even including bills, seems questionable at best, and a terrible decision at worst. I asked my husband why they can't move into a modest apartment and make a plan to buy in a year or two, but he didn't really have an answer, but agreed that they absolutely need a plan in order for him to engage. Again, after several weeks of back and forth with his family, they had yet provide any solid plan on how they would pay the mortgage, bills, and avoid default. Who would be responsible for repairs? No idea. Finally, last week before I left for a work trip, my husband told me he would not be co-signing on the home and that they had done zero planning. I was so relieved and was able to relax on my trip. Well, I returned home at the end of the week and was taking a shower when he walks in and tells me he co-signed for the home. To say I was taken aback is an understatement. I went through all the range of emotions in a short amount of time, but it wasn't until the next morning that what he had done had really hit me. He chose to make a risky investment with people who don't respect him, and did it behind my back after assuring me he wouldn't. He kept trying to tell me I was safe from any potential impact, but I don't understand how that could be. I asked him to walk me through the conversation, the plans, and any assurance that our own assets were safe. He couldn't. He then had the audacity to tell me, at least I decided to tell you. That is when I lost it. I felt absolutely betrayed and disrespected. I cried and screamed and told him how he cannot see how they use him. I told him I was questioning his integrity and our relationship. We are also in the midst of the IVF process, and it has been extremely hard on me and my body. I told him I didn't think he deserved to be the father of my children, and if we did have children, his family would have limited contact and not allowed around my children. There are other incidents of how they have treated me with such disrespect that even I have distanced myself from them. That is also another reason why my husband decided for us to move away from them. Back to the subject. At first he was remorseful, but then he got defensive of his family. Even though myself and many others have tried to show him how abusive they are. I told him if he wanted any chance of making our relationship right, he was to immediately work with his mother and sister to write a contract that he had majority ownership in the home, so that if they continued to make poor decisions and default, he could sell the house. Well, to no one's surprise, his family would not agree to these terms, because they believe living there is enough to solidify it's theirs. For the last 3 days, I've asked over and over again why he made this drastic decision without a plan. My friends agree that this is a divorce-worthy offense, but the reality is besides this, we have a wonderful life together and I love him dearly. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for calling my husband stupid and threatening divorce over co-signing the loan? Some additional details for anyone interested. His sister is actually older than him. He has managed to keep his financial success fairly well hidden from his family, but due to the co-sign process, they now know exactly what assets he has, and I'm certain they will expect more from him. Before asking my husband to co-sign, they didn't even attempt to take out the loan for the home on their own. I assume they expect that having him on the loan will give them carte blanche on destroying the home, or default on the loan because he will pay in order not to mess up his own credit and assets. His family does not care for me, and are likely jealous at the life I have with my husband and how they get less from him. Though my husband maintains the finances, we bring in roughly the same income, so this is not a case of my husband having full control over financial choices. Not the a-hole. He has shown you to be irresponsible. What happens if you have a college fund for your kids and his family feels entitled? Please do not have a kid with him. Unless he could somehow get out of this mess and go no contact with them, I would definitely divorce him. Even then, I don't see how we would rebuild trust. I would have to go through every single account monthly, and I don't know if it's worth it. The blatant lie and then doing it behind her back, how on earth do you get past that? If they divorce now, then this stays with him. He just lost their retirement/college fund, just gave it away, and will most likely keep on doing it. It's $1 million, with zero equity for him. OP, I'm so sorry you had trouble conceiving, but I'm glad you are not tied by a kid to this mess. Not the a-hole. Yeah, even if she loves him, divorce him and separate all finances completely, so she's off the hook for the debt when they screw her husband over. My sister ruined my life because our parents favor me over her. I, 25 female, have always been in competition with my sister, 27 female, since I can remember. I was a baby born after a miscarriage our mom had, so my parents were very happy and shifted their attention away from my sister and onto me. I want to clarify that I never took joy in this, and I knew I was favored over my sister due to unfair circumstances. I tried to connect with her growing up because I considered her a really cool person, but she always seemed uninterested, which only made my parents chew her out for hurting my feelings. Obviously, that only caused her to hate me more. When I turned 15, I completely stopped engaging with her. My parents didn't push for us to be friends either and kept their attention on me, which has always bugged me because who wants to be cuddled and surveilled 24/7? Anyway, things went alright for me and I eventually got myself into a good college, and my parents offered to pay for everything. Food, rent, school supplies, etc. since I wanted to move out of their house. I wanted to be independent, so I declined. But when my sister heard of this, she was understandably mad as they had refused to pay for anything and told her she needed to learn responsibility by paying for her own things. She blew up at my parents, but mostly at me for stealing away the attention of our parents her entire life and making her miserable. I tried to explain that I agreed that they were bad parents and that she deserved better, but she just told me to shut my whole mouth and that she didn't need my sympathy. My parents forced her to apologize and threatened to cut contact if she didn't. I agree that was harsh, but I understand how frustrated she must have felt her whole life, so I don't hold it against her. Since she didn't have much of a support system other than them, she sent me a super long apology over text and tried to mend things, though it was obvious she only did it just because she was forced to. During the first few months of college, I ended up meeting a guy named John, 26 male, and we started dating shortly after. Everything just clicked, and it seemed like he knew my every thought. At my 20th birthday party, I introduced him to my family and everything seemed to go well. I kept my family and John separate because my parents were always super nosy and my sister seemed extremely judgmental when I would bring company. This time around, she was super friendly though. Looking back, my sister was definitely a little too touchy with him, but I chalked that up to her just wanting to overcompensate to mend our relationship further. After I graduate, John ended up proposing and I said yes, as I was head over heels in love. We decided on having a wedding once we had secured good paying jobs, and things seems to be perfect between us. Flash forward to 3 weeks ago, and I got the most gut-wrenching message of my life. It was from my sister, telling me that she was pregnant and it was John's. In addition to that, she sent screenshots of messages and explicit images between the two. They professed their love for each other multiple times, and John said that my sister was the best he'd ever had in his life, despite him saying the same to me. It had been going on for a majority of the years we'd been together. To say I sobbed my eyes out would be an insulting understatement. I asked her how she could do this to me, and she replied, "Now you know how it feels to get your whole life ripped away from you. He loves me more, and I'll make sure he leaves your sorry butt for me and our baby. Go cry to our parents and see if I care," and then blocked me before I could respond. I screenshotted a lot of it before she did. The best word I used to call my fiancé came home hours later from work and saw me crying. He begged to know what was wrong and tried to comfort me, but I blew up at him and kicked him out. It's my apartment that we share. He admitted to the affair over text and said he loved me but loved my sister too and had to be there for his child, so the engagement is off. His brother came and took all his stuff, and he hasn't even given me an apology for any of this. I've been crying for almost a month straight, and all I want to do is beat the living crap out of my sister. But I know I would go to jail, especially since she's pregnant. I used to look up to her so much, and I thought that things were finally looking up. But then she decided to backstab me, and for what? Mommy and daddy's love that I never wanted in the first place? I barely even liked my parents either because of their behavior. But I'm the villain? For Pete's sake, you would think an almost 30-year-old woman would seek therapy or talk to me directly about her resentment. But no, she had to sabotage my life for the sake of hers being awful. I can't even feel any sympathy for her anymore, and I just want to go away forever. I have extremely alarming thoughts, but I've just resorted to locking myself in my room all day since I work remotely, and it's calmed down in the last few days. My sister unblocks me occasionally to keep rubbing it in my face that he chose her over me, sending picture of them together and her baby bump. I've already blocked her to make sure she leaves me alone. She's a grown woman for God's sake, gloating like a child. If he's willing to cheat on me for so long, I feel incredibly bad for their baby, but definitely not for her. I haven't told my parents yet, and I'm unsure how to even go about it. They'd 100% take my side, but they aren't good people, so I don't want their crappy support. I haven't told my friends, and I don't have a therapist. I want to tell someone, but this is so incredibly humiliating that I can't bring myself to do much but cry and drown myself in work. I saw myself growing old with him and having my sister as a bridesmaid. Like I really thought we'd grown past our issues, but now they're together and left me to fend for myself. Again, this is so goddamn humiliating, but I need to talk to someone. Now for the top comments. Your sister just destroyed her whole life to mess with yours. You will move on from this. Her? She's stuck with a man she doesn't love, just the man she used, that she knows is a cheater, and she's bringing her child into this. She will never be able to get past what she just did to herself. Is she going to brag about how she met him to her kid? His family knows who you are. This will follow her. Her whole life she has made about you, her childhood, her adult years, her future child's life. The fact that you never blamed your sister for being mad at you shows how emotionally mature and compassionate you are. One day you are going to be married to a faithful man that you love more than you thought possible, and you will look at the kids you share, and you will know that your sister just gave you the biggest gift. And you will know it's something that she can never have because she chose to be hateful to someone who didn't do anything to deserve it. Block them. Change your number if you have to. Tell whoever you need to the truth, and tell mutual friends who don't want to know anything about them. And never answer him when he reaches out with regret, because he will. For sure, OP, listen to this. She is and will always be miserable. Until she is happy with herself, she will never be happy with anyone. When her kid misbehaves, it will be your fault for making her go behind your back and get pregnant by your ex-fiancé. When it cheats on her, it will be your fault. All of her choices will always be your fault. When she's still not happy after trying to ruin your life, it will be your fault. She did not make these choices out of love or respect or kindness. and therefore she will never have real love, respect, or kindness in return. I feel horribly sorry for the kid, either going to be neglected or egregiously spoiled. One day you will realize the giant gift she gave you, preventing you from marrying that total a-hat. You will be happy again, and it will make her even more miserable. She's already really miserable. No person actually happy in the relationship reaches out to someone to say how great it is. Honestly, you should thank her the next time she texts before you block her. Get under her skin once. Thank you for saving me. If he was tempted by you, it just means that he would have been tempted by someone else down the line, and I'm not stuck with someone who could be disloyal to me. I'm not tied to him by children, so I have a fresh, clean slate. I hope you two are so happy together, and then block. I'd also mention that his lack of loyalty is her problem now, and to think about that every time he goes to the gym, works late, or fails to show up for something, because it's only a matter of time. Good luck eventually being a single mom. Every single person in your life is trash. Let them all go. Get therapy, move away, have your own family somewhere else. Your own friends, another boyfriend, everything. Just get away. Find a therapist now. You really need one. Don't be ashamed. You didn't ask for this. Your sister is mentally ill. Trust me, if you find someone else, she'd try to seduce them too. This happiness won't last long when she sees you happy again with someone else. Trust me, if you find someone else, she'd try to seduce them too. This would be my fear as well, that she would try with every future partner till the day she passed. And even if she couldn't seduce them, that she'd just lie and say she did just to mess with Opie. Sis and John planted a forever seed of doubt. Last story. Woman obsessed with my husband tried to break up my marriage, got hit by karma. 16 years ago, my husband and I were married with a 1-year-old little girl. We were high school sweethearts that went to different schools, met junior year and made it work. Where we went to different school, I met John through my husband, but never met Sarah or Cindy. Still haven't met them in real life. One night, my daughter and I spent the night at my sister's house with her 2 kids because her husband was out of town for work and she was heavily pregnant and needed help the night he would be gone. That night, my husband's best friend John, who has been friends since 2nd grade, came over to our house to hang out with him. Next day, my husband told me John's ex-girlfriend Sarah and her best friend Cindy came over to see John. John was already with a new girlfriend, Sandy. And that while John slept with Sarah in our spare bedroom, Cindy had tried to sleep with my tipsy husband. He kicked them out like 2 a.m. My husband turned Cindy down, but apparently she had always had a crush on my husband. For a year afterward, she would call his phone. Didn't know how she got his number, but changed his number twice. She kept getting it. Calling, playing music, saying lewd things. Even sending emails saying how our daughter needs to be put down so she didn't end up being a witch like me. That they would jump me and bash my daughter's head in if they saw us out alone. Kept sending updates on where I went, asked how my doctor's appointment was, how his tournament was. Creepy stalker stuff. For the longest time, I refused to leave the house without my husband because I was seriously concerned they would hurt my daughter. For a year I felt trapped in my home. I vividly remember being 3 weeks postpartum after an emergency C-section with our 2nd child and just holding my baby and sliding down the wall to sit and cry. Because she had called again. It was 2 or 3 times a week she would call. She always blocked her number and sent the emails from an anonymous email address. For a while, I thought maybe my husband was talking to her. How else would she be getting his new numbers? I lost so much faith in him. I know he was mad about the situation and would scream into the phone to leave us alone. I saved every call log, email, and recorded what I could. I sent an email to her throwaway and said I knew who she was and that I was going to the police for harassment. Spoiler alert, I already tried, but there wasn't enough evidence because she blocked her number and nothing traced back to her. However, we were 20, she was 19, and it scared her enough to leave us alone. 3 months of peace later, and his best friend John came over with Sandy for dinner. Sandy and I were friends, and would talk about everything with the crazies, as we called them. She asked how everything with Cindy was going, and I asked her how she forgave John for sleeping with Sarah. She lost it because she didn't know. He lies, says he didn't, and that my husband got it wrong, that they were just talking. Sandy didn't believe him, and then John screamed at me. This is why I kept giving Cindy's number. She would be a better match for him. My husband threw John out, and they yelled at each other outside for a while. Turns out, John was upset my husband wasn't going out and partying with him. John thought it was me not allowing my husband to go. But that wasn't true. My husband didn't want to go. He preferred to be home with me and our daughter. The few times I went out with John, I practically had to kick him out of the house to get him to go. John couldn't understand it was my husband who didn't want to go clubbing. My husband has never been a clubbing guy. He hates people and loud music. He kicked John out of our lives that night, and husband hasn't spoken to him since. We changed his number one last time and never had any other issues. For her part, Cindy got some serious karma. I couldn't help but laugh when I learned she married a guy a year later, had a kid and got cheated on, and then he left her for another woman while she was pregnant. I usually don't enjoy others' misfortunes. However, after the hell she put us through, especially during my pregnancy with our second child, I laughed when I heard. For John, he married Sandy, has 2 kids now, and tried to get back in contact with us 13 years ago after he had his first kid. He wanted to apologize because apparently after having his own kid, he realized how screwed up he was, doing what he did. He called my husband's parents because they still had a landline at a time. My in-laws had already been told years earlier what happened and that under no circumstances were they to give out our numbers to him. So we went to my in-laws, and my husband called him back and told him to never contact our family again. Side note, when husband called John back, we found out Cindy wasn't following us like we thought. John would tell her where we were going. So screw you, John. You and that psycho Cindy. I can't believe Sandy married him. She's very forgiving, definitely. No, she just believed him that nothing happened between him and his ex that night. He convinced her it was a misunderstanding. Did you not hear him confess that he was feeding your information to a woman who threatened your child's life? That seems like something that would make you run. Sandy had already walked out of the house before he screamed that at me. I have no idea what she knew. You didn't tell afterwards? I called her the next day, other than, hey, I didn't get to speak. She kept saying my husband was wrong, that John would never cheat on her, and refused to listen to anything I tried to say and then hung up on me. I haven't spoken to her since. That was 15 years ago. Sandy is the biggest freaking idiot. Perpetual doormat. I'm afraid she's being abused. When we knew them, Sandy always wore the pants of the relationship. What she said went. John was a master manipulator, but she always got her way, no matter what, from what we saw. John only had his grandmother, and Sandy had a huge family. They moved because her parents did, so they would be close to them. So I don't think she was abused. Her dad would have already unalived John if he had. And John's grandmother moved with them. I honestly have no idea what their marriage is like. We blocked their social media after we joined Facebook, and they sent friend requests. Heard they moved 4 states away about 10 years ago. Well, the end of this story was satisfying to read, I can tell you. I'm sorry she ruined the first few years with your babies. It still affected me for years. I was always worried about taking both kids out by myself. I waited for my husband, mom, or mother-in-law to go with me. It sucked big time, and I still had anxiety when I went into crowded places with my kids. A few years ago, I got my permit to carry, so I don't worry anymore. My husband and I met through his ex-girlfriend. I was dating a guy she knew and was friends with on Facebook. She showed my now husband my pic and sent me a message saying he thought I was cute. His ex had a tendency to introduce him to acquaintances of hers, knowing they wouldn't work and he would come back to her afterwards. This time that didn't happen. We hit it off right away, and from that point forward it was always us being exclusive. Flash forward a couple of months, she invites us to dinner with her and her boyfriend. I was excited to finally meet her. The entire time she completely ignored me. Instead, wanting to discuss their relationship and how much fun they had, with me and her boyfriend witnessing this. It got to the point I wanted to climb across the table. Afterwards, I told my boyfriend if he wanted to stay friends with her, I understood. I wanted to be neutral, since they had years-long friendship. To his credit, he stopped talking to her. 3 days ago, she sent a message to my husband on Facebook and he blocked her. We have been together 10 years, married for 8. Am I the a-hole for refusing to go to my sister's wedding if she uses her dream wedding planner? I love my mom and sister, but to be honest, they're obsessed with money/status/image. When I got engaged to my now ex-fiancé, my mom immediately hired me the hottest event planner in our city. This woman was hard to get and had done some beautiful events we had previously attended. She was fine at first, but as time went on, I felt she was being catty and I really want to back out of our contract. But my mom reminded me of how much she had spent and convinced me it was in my head. Well, lo and behold, a few weeks before the wedding, my now ex had a breakdown about how he couldn't marry me. because he was in love with someone else. Now looking back, I ignored a lot of red flags and he was clearly depressed in our relationship. But at the time I was shocked. I'll admit that I just wanted to be married and ignored a lot of clear signs that he was miserable. He ended up leaving me for the freaking wedding planner. It was a difficult and humiliating time, which my mom and sister helped me get through. He said some things which have really impacted my self-esteem long-term, about how he never meant for this to happen, but he didn't realize how deeply he could feel things until he met her. That was 3 years ago, and they are currently married. My sister recently got engaged, and my mom went out and hired my wedding planner's business partner. Now they co-owned a business, so him making money means her making money. Not to mention, he is her close and personal friend. He literally walked her down the aisle to marry my ex. I expressed to my mom and sister how hurtful this was. They brushed it off and said that he is his own person and not responsible for what she did. I can see that, but I still feel that they are putting the best of the best over my feelings. I finally said that if they continued working with him, I wouldn't be attending. I know realistically it is ridiculous, but I just don't want my mom giving the homewrecker a dime. My sister cried and said I was sabotaging her wedding, and my mom thinks I'm being petty. Now for the top comments. Info. Did you leave a review for the wedding planner that your fiancé and her got together while she was planning your wedding? That would have been just the right touch of petty revenge. Also, not a hole. Your sister, mom, ex-fiancé, and ex-wedding planner all suck. Yes, she gets called a loose woman around town a lot, but it hasn't hurt business. It seems to hurt my ex how people talk about her, but she has fun with it and lead into the whole image. Not a hole. We're talking about wedding planners, not surgeons. Find literally anyone else. Your sister can't possibly have her dream wedding without hiring the company owned by your cheating ex and wedding planner. Your wedding planner literally broke up your relationship while planning your wedding. I think your feelings are totally justified. There are so many wedding planners. Not the a-hole. Your mom and sister are clearly the a-holes. I don't even get why everyone says you are. I totally agree. I can't imagine being this tone deaf that they think the OP isn't going to mind. That business is tainted by the current wedding planner's partner stealing a groom. What the heck? But hey, the OP isn't forcing the sister to do anything. She's just saying she won't be there to watch it. The OP's sister can still use the wedding planner. She just can't have her cake and eat it too. Keep the tainted wedding planner and have OP pretend that nothing is wrong. Not a hole. Why haven't you gone scorched earth on the wedding planner's business? Pretty sure if you blasted them on social media, she wouldn't be a wedding planner anymore. I don't see that happening. We live in a very image-driven, competitive city, and she does the best work. No one cares what she did because she delivers. It was spread around, and she does have a reputation now, but that doesn't hurt her business. Next story. Am I the a-hole for speaking Italian to my girlfriend's rude Italian-American family and embarrassing them? Backstory. Due to my dad's job, we lived in Italy for 3 years when I was younger, so I speak Italian almost fluently. It's been a while, so I've lost some of it. Recently, I started dating a girl. She's great, and I love her so much, and I met her family a few nights ago for dinner. She warned me that the male side of her family is very big into being macho, into testing the boys the women date, and are very big on taking pride in their Italian ancestry. I think besides the grandfather, however, they were almost all born in Bergen County, New Jersey. But whatever, it's nice to take pride in one's heritage. Long story short, at dinner they kept making jokes at my expense. I honestly wouldn't call it bullying, just things about my height, beard, shaved head. They tried making fun of my IT job too, but stopped once I told them my income. It was overall not a bad experience, but a not so pleasant one. Anyways, her older brother kept pushing things, giving me exceptional amounts of crap for playing lacrosse in high school because apparently it's a sport for prissy rich kids and not manly like football or baseball. He ended his rant by saying, "Hey, we're just a big Italian family. We're allowed and tell it how we see it. Ha ha ha." And all the family except my girlfriend laughed. So I, for the next minute, responded to everything they said in Italian. My girlfriend buried her head in shame. The grandfather laughed and everyone else kept looking at each other confused, before telling me they didn't speak Italian. I replied, "Then don't use your Italian heritage as an excuse to behave poorly when you can't even speak the language." They got mad, but the grandfather told them all I was right and to be quiet. My girlfriend isn't mad, just ashamed. I think the grandfather likes me, but word from my girlfriend's sister is that all the men are furious, think I'm a smart mouth, and that I disrespected them and their masculinity in an unforgivable way. So am I the a-hole? Edited to add, there may have been some confusion as to my girlfriend's reaction. She was ashamed her family dug so deep into me, not about my response. After wanting to die for the next 48 hours, she agreed I did the right thing and that it was funny. Lol, not the a-hole. The granddad knows it. He probably half rolls his eyes every time they say they are Italian when he knows he's the last speaker. You shut them down in the most epic/appropriate way possible. Your girlfriend should be proud flaunting that her boyfriend is more Italian than any of them. Yeah, this. Not the a-hole. I bet the granddad absolutely loves you. LMAO. The pure savagery from what you said and did is so golden. You totally won the heart of your girlfriend's grandfather. I wish I had that kind of grandfather, but mine is an a-hole. You and your girlfriend are lucky to have each other. Not the a-hole. Sending good vibes. They sound like idiots, and this response sounds kind of funny. But if I was planning on dating someone for any length of time, I probably wouldn't dunk on their family so hard the first time I met them. There's a difference between was I an a-hole and was this a good idea. I mean, the family could have done the same thing and not ragged on him so hard, considering he might be around for a long time. Exactly. If the brothers and other male relatives want a continued good relationship with their sister, they need to make a good impression on her partner, just as much as the other way around. We don't live in feudal societies anymore. The clan isn't everything. Edited to add, also, in the long run, being a doormat is not the way to deal with bullies. They will take that as invitation to continue or escalate. Once they get over their hurt feelings, they will respect him more for standing up for himself. Best to set the right precedence right away. Not the a-hole. It sounds like the boys were hoping to put you through a hazing ritual, and you weren't biting and put them in their place. And Grandpa proved. If they truly cared about masculinity, they'd like him. But it seems like they only care if they are personally more masculine than any other guy that may become regulars in their family life. Oh, and a hard not the a-hole OP. Yeah, also want to add that this is more Italian-American culture than Italian, more specific Northeast US. I'm from the area and you don't have to say Jersey for me to know where this took place. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my cousin she is being disrespectful by having her mother-in-law sit in the backseat of the car? We were going on a trip with my cousin Sonia and her husband Joe. Joe's mom would also come on the trip. We'd ride in separate cars. I'd be with my husband in our own car and cousin, her husband, and mother-in-law would go in theirs. When they pulled up at our house so we could all leave together for the road trip, I saw Sonia sitting in the front seat and her mother-in-law sitting in the back, and it rubbed me the wrong way, but I didn't say anything at that moment. After we arrived and chit-chatted a bit, I told my cousin that I've never seen anyone do what she did in the car. She asked what I'm referring to, and I told her that I've never seen anyone make their mom or mother-in-law sit in the back seat. That's your husband's mom. You should show some respect and offer her the front seat. She laughed and asked if I'm being serious. I told her I'm 100% serious, and my husband backed me up and said that it's my duty to respect the woman who birthed and raised him. And I'm on the same page as him. I've never even dared to think of having my mother-in-law in the back seat while I take the front. It's a respect thing which she apparently lacks. Then my cousin's husband, but also her mother-in-law, verbally cussed me out and defended my cousin. Her husband says what they do in their car is none of my concern, so I either shut my mouth now or they leave the trip. Her mother-in-law also told me that I've got it all wrong, and as mother-in-law, it's her responsibility to show respect to the couple and treat her son's wife as a priority, and that she's respecting my cousin by taking the back seat. I was called an a-hole and my husband was called one too because we are apparently not minding our business. And my cousin said that if I enjoy being second to my husband's mother, that's a me problem. After that, they left the trip and went to another place to stay because they didn't like the energy we brought. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. You're the a-hole. Not every mother-in-law is some stereotypical witch that thinks she's the #1 woman in her son's life and needs to pull rank and demand respect at every opportunity. Why does a mother-in-law need to split up partners from sitting next to each other in their own car? The couple was fine with it. The mom was fine with it. You were rude AF and insulted everyone. Not to mention, maybe mother-in-law prefers the back seat? I mean, I'll sit in the front if it's just me and the driver, but if there's more than 2 people, I prefer the back seat. I can chill and watch the world go by with no one asking me to man the GPS or change the radio or whatever. Not that I mind doing those things, but it's nice not to. Exactly. I'm Asian, and in my culture, backseat is reserved for the boss. It is also a safer spot in case of an accident. Not saying you have to offer backseat either, but people can make their own decisions on where they'd want to sit. It's crazy that OP makes it such a big deal. You're the a-hole. You're the a-hole. It was none of your business, and they were happy with their arrangement. Not your place to interfere or share your disapproval. Not to mention that the mother-in-law is an adult woman, and more than capable of speaking for herself if she thought she had been slighted. I don't know why Opie thought it was her responsibility to say anything, much less her place. She is definitely capable. She let Opie have it for being the a-hole. It is awesome to read about a mother-in-law who has the daughter-in-law's back. Literally in this case. Opie is the a-hole. Imagine telling people where to sit in their own cars. It is also the first time I've heard of mother-in-laws getting dibs on the front seat. It'd always have my husband's grandmother in the front seats because she had mobility issues, and we could move the front seat forward and back with electronic controls for easier access. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for dropping out as maid of honor in my older sister's wedding? Backstory. I, 23 female, have two sisters. Jenna, 25, Summer, 19, and a brother, Jason, 22. My parents also took in a family member, Rachel, 11, a few months ago. Rachel has been through a lot. She doesn't talk, she never lets go of this little stuffed elephant, and she follows my mom everywhere. She can't go to school yet because my mom and her therapist agree that it would be too much for her. Rachel is the sweetest kid ever though. She's always down to cuddle and watch a Disney movie, and she has the cutest smile. I was even allowed to touch her elephant the other day. Jenna has always been a pretty difficult person. She hasn't lived at home in a while. She moved out for college, moved back home for a few months, then moved in with her boyfriend, now fiancé. My parents have been using her room as a guest room, but they never changed anything about it. Rachel has also been staying there. My parents are going to adopt Rachel, and they want to turn Jenna's old room into Rachel's new room. They told Jenna they're turning her old room into Rachel's room, so she needs to come and go through her stuff and decide what she wants to keep and what she wants to donate/throw away. Jenna said they can find another place to put Rachel, and she's not giving up her room. My parents said they already made their decision, and Jenna made an ultimatum. Either our parents keep her room the way it is, or she goes no contact. My dad and I packed all of Jenna's stuff into boxes and put it in an empty garage. We painted Rachel's new room, put together furniture, and filled the closet with new clothes and toys. We even built in a snack bar. Rachel loves it. She's starting to stay in her room more. Before, she'd only go in her room if she needed to change or sleep. And I'm pretty sure I heard her talking to her elephant. Not as good as talking to a person, but we'll take it. The problem is, now Jenna and my parents are in a huge fight. Jenna went no contact and uninvited my parents from her wedding. In retaliation, my parents announced that they wouldn't pay for half of the wedding anymore. And they're not going to pay the down payment on a house for Jenna and her fiancé, their wedding present. This has caused Jenna to call them abusive and neglectful to anyone that'll listen. I was supposed to be her maid of honor, but I can't believe she's acting like this, so I dropped out of the wedding party. Now Jenna's even madder, and her fiancé is saying the entire family is being cruel to her. Not the a-hole. Jenna's reaction to all of this is massively out of proportion and entitled. But I am curious, was there any other good option for Rachel's room? Jason doesn't live here anymore, but my parents give us 1 year at home after college, so I'm sure they want to keep it open for him if he needs it. Your parents sound like very thoughtful people. Between my sophomore and junior year of college, I took a summer course overseas. When I came back, my parents had sold their 4-bedroom house, parents mine and 2 guest bedrooms, and moved into a new 4-bedroom house. The new house had parents' room, office, grandson's room for visits, and a guest room. I had been staying in my bedroom for a few weeks before going overseas, and the house wasn't even for sale, nor did I hear any discussion on selling it. Damn, that's a hell of a gut punch to come home to. Hope they at least kept your stuff. My parents have a friend that just up and moved while their kid was off at college, and the kid did not find out until he came back to visit and found a completely different family living there. Definitely not the a-hole. My mom turned my brother's room into a guest room after he moved out. My old room? That's where her 2 cats live. Jenna is a huge a-hole.
Not only for being absurd about keeping her old room as a shrine, but even more so if Rachel finds out. Sounds like Rachel's been through some traumatic stuff and doesn't need the added trauma of feeling unwelcome and unwanted. Jenna's room has been the guest room since she moved out. They just never got around to changing anything in the room. Too long didn't read. Sister threw an epic tantrum and made a no-going-back ultimatum. Parents called her bluff, which included a huge monetary amount, and now sister is crying victim. Not the a-hole. Beware though, Jenna has nothing left to throw at her parents. But if she gets within sight of Rachel, she is going to aim every bit of venom she has at an innocent child, which could set the poor kid back years.
Am I the a-hole for refusing to resign a lease weeks before leaving my pregnant sister homeless? I, 23 female, have an Irish twin, 24 female. We've been living together for 2 years. She's a single mom of a toddler. When we first moved in together, the apartment was only in her name, and she let me live with her. I was finishing dental assisting school and couldn't qualify for an apartment on my own. I still paid half the rent and utilities. And after graduating and getting a job, I became an official added roommate to the lease last year. I make a lot of money for my age, so when my sister was struggling to pay her half of the rent when her job cut her hours significantly, it was no-brainer to start paying more. I could easily afford all the rent, so covering another 25% is nothing. Plus, I love her and my niece. My sister has no help whatsoever from the father, so I help her as much as I can. He works under the table, so he doesn't get his wages garnished for child support. I have watched her struggle to afford daycare and food for her baby, so I also help her with that. 2 days ago, my sister sits me down and tells me she has news. She's pregnant. My jaw dropped. I ask who the dad is, and she starts crying. I didn't expect her to say her deadbeat baby daddy. I was shocked, and she continued on her explanation. She saw a girl commenting under his posts, and she went on her page and saw they had taken pictures at the same place at the same time. The girl also posted him for his birthday weeks later saying, "Happy birthday to my fiancé." She messaged her letting her know he's a deadbeat and got blocked. Then her baby daddy called her, saying she's a crazy witch, and that led them to getting a hotel room and they slept with each other. All to prove some point to his fiancé that he's not loyal and she can have him whatever she wants, because she sent her proof after they slept together. But the fiancé stayed with him. As she's telling me this story, I just sit there upset. I started asking her if she went to the doctor and how far along is she. She said she did stop by Planned Parenthood and got a scan, and she's 9 weeks. We live in a blue state, so abortion is legal here, and I told my sister that I wasn't going to be resigning the lease unless she got an abortion. She looked at me with so much disgust and started crying harder. She called me evil and said I'm a horrible person for making her choose between her baby or having housing. I told her with her hours now, she can't afford even half the rent, let alone the daycare she splits between me, our dad and aunt. So to understand the position she's putting me in since the responsibility's falling on me. She told our family, and they're mad saying I'm being heartless to even ask her that, and that I shouldn't punish her, and that I should sign at least 6 months so she can get her act together, since 5 weeks isn't a lot of time. I said no, she's ungrateful for all the help I've done, so I'm out. Now they're saying I'm an a-hole, since when I didn't qualify, she let me live with her even though I paid half. Now for the top comments before reading the update. I shouldn't punish her and I should sign at least 6 months. Not the a-hole. I hate when family tries to spend other family members' money. Tell your family that they can co-sign for your sister and pitch in on the rent since they are so adamant about it. You aren't forcing your sister to get a procedure. You just aren't going to live with her if she has another kid. The kids are not your responsibility, and you should not have to take care of them. Deadbeat dad's future wife should know that if he cannot afford child support, they will get it out of her wages. When they get married, the courts take into consideration the household income, so she will be on the hook for both kids, if in the US. If it's paid under the table, court will require him to get a job. Not the a-hole. You had the right intentions, although you expressed them in a way that wasn't apt. I mean, you played the biggest card you were holding in your hand. When we do something for our loved ones, we shouldn't hold that as a way to control them or their decisions. I can understand where you are coming from. She definitely shouldn't have this baby, rationally speaking. But it is not for us or for you to decide. I can understand that the responsibility will fall over you eventually. So you could have told her that she should reconsider and that you wouldn't be able to support that second baby. But using the lease card was like using a bazooka for killing a spider. So you might have been wrong there. You should play it positively going forward, like encourage and even somewhat push your sister to get a job, make a life for herself. She can't be dependent on you and others for all her life. She needs to sort out her life by herself. You guys are there for her to count on and to support her, but she shouldn't take it for granted. I brought up the lease since it's approaching, and we spoke over the summer about wanting to renew again. So I wanted to let her know I had a change of heart. She does have a job. Her hours are now part-time though, and she can't find a second one. I want her to have an amazing life, but I feel like it's a slap in the face for her to have another baby by a guy who doesn't help with the first one, and that I'm expected to support the new one. With one baby it was tolerable, but two is making me realize that I want more out of life than to stick around and keep helping her. Next story. Am I the a-hole for banning my sister and her boyfriend from my wedding? So my husband and I are getting married in December. My sister's boyfriend started asking if he could propose to my sister at my wedding. I obviously said no, because that's our day only. He can propose the day after my wedding, but not on my wedding. But he asked me again and again, and I said no every time. The 50th time when he asked me, I said not only can't he propose at my wedding, but he can't even come to my wedding. Then my sister started to fight over this. She knew her boyfriend wanted to propose to her at my wedding. I told her that it's gonna be my day and my husband's only. She started to call me names because I banned her boyfriend from my wedding. She said that if I'm not gonna let him propose to her, then she's gonna ruin my wedding dress. She even said that she's gonna sneak her boyfriend because she wanted to have all the family members be present on her proposal. I said that's fine. She's also banned from my wedding now. A few days later, some family members called me to say I'm a heartless person because I broke my sister's heart. They said she cried because she wanted to be on my wedding. She wanted to see her little sister getting married. She also said that I should have just accepted her wish and let her boyfriend propose at my wedding. So you guys tell me, am I the a-hole? You are not the a-hole. Your sister and future brother-in-law, however, are two matching pieces of work. She's going to wreck your wedding dress if you don't let her boyfriend come propose at your wedding? Wow. I would suggest that you hire security to make sure your sister and her boyfriend cannot attend. Her instability could truly wreck your wedding, particularly if she tries to make good on her threats to sneak in boyfriend and wreck your dress. As for her heart being broken, ignore. It's just drama from a woman who just really wants to upstage you at your wedding. Do not include her. Do not include her boyfriend. Share with your family in writing. Please stop contacting me about my sister and future brother-in-law not being invited to my wedding. Brother-in-law asked me many times if he could propose to sister there, and I told him no, as the wedding is to celebrate the bride and groom and should not be hijacked by another event. After many requests, he still refused to take no for an answer, so I asked him not to come. Sister then said that she would come, wreck my wedding dress, sneak her boyfriend in, and have her proposal. She also called me all sorts of names. For these reasons, sister and future brother-in-law will not be coming to my wedding. I'm not open to further discussion on this topic. Best, Opie. Yep, let family know what their plans were. Also, Opie should let people who continue to harass her know that they can miss the wedding too. Get security and make sure she has no access to her dress. Passwords with vendors too. Not the a-hole, and this BS right here is yet another reason people elope. The nerve of your possible future brother-in-law wanting to steal your spotlight at your wedding. And family members backing him and your sister up even though she threatened to ruin your wedding dress. Of course, you disinvited them. And you can put their little flying monkeys up for consideration if an invite take back too. Your sister saying just wants to see her little sister get married so she can get a ring on it and avoid having to organize and pay for her own damn engagement party. Oh hell no, not the a-hole. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not sponsoring my friend's honeymoon? I've known my friend for almost 5 years, and we've always been good friends, but not particularly close. She recently got engaged to her boyfriend of 8 years, and started planning her dream wedding, which from what I've heard is extravagant and way out of budget. Her parents are paying for the gown and venue, while his parents are covering the food, decor, and other expenses. They have 3 kids together, and money has always been tight due to their growing family. A couple of months ago, we went out for drinks and all she could talk about was how she deserved her dream honeymoon but couldn't afford it. I felt bad for her. I've been working as a registered nurse for quite a while and my pay was good, and I had some money saved up as well. So I decided to offer to sponsor her honeymoon in Hawaii, which she eagerly accepted and was grateful for. However, things took a turn for the worse when we went shopping for bridesmaids' dresses. She insisted we wear a particular lilac dress, which was revealing and uncomfortable, especially for someone like me who doesn't have a 0 figure and is on the busty side. When I expressed my discomfort, she made a cruel joke about my appearance, comparing me to a baby elephant and suggesting I lose weight. I asked if I could wear a different dress in the same color, but she dismissed me and implied that my size was the problem. When I tried on the dress, it was a disaster. My stomach looked absolutely hideous, and my breasts were spilling out, making it uncomfortable. My so-called friends laughed and made jokes about my appearance. When I told the bride the dress wasn't working for me, her response was the last straw. She told me that because of my body size, nothing ever worked for me, just like my past relationship with Tyler, my ex. This was a particularly sensitive topic for me, and I couldn't hold back my emotions any longer. I left the place in tears and texted her that I was canceling her Hawaii trip and wouldn't attend her wedding. She became angry and told her sob story to other friends, but most of them sided with me. A few days later, she messaged me, apologizing and asking me to attend her wedding. I declined, but then unbelievably, she had the audacity to ask me to pay for her honeymoon, insisting I promised. She even made her fiancé, sisters, and friends text me and pressure me to pay for her honeymoon. I lost my patience and told her that her financial struggles and her 3 kids were her responsibility, not mine. Then called her an entitled and stuck-up person who didn't even deserve my friendship. Now I'm in a dilemma, feeling guilty for my harsh words. I heard that she's been constantly crying and complaining about how I ruined her wedding. Some of our mutual friends are telling me that I can't take a joke and I am overreacting. So, am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. She's dumb and an a-hole. Who picks on a person paying for their honeymoon? She was never a good friend. Not the a-hole. I always knew she was a bit inconsiderate, but I had no idea she could go to this extent. She makes fun of almost everyone, but the things she said to me didn't even feel like a joke. Way too personal and too hurtful. Not the a-hole. First, you shouldn't have offered to sponsor the honeymoon in the first place. You need to think carefully about why you did that, because you shouldn't have. Contributing $250 towards it? Fine. But sponsoring the whole thing? Yeah, no. And to hell what anyone else thinks. You make jokes about my body and my former relationships, then I can choose to remove myself and my money from your presence. What they said was not a joke, and it is not your fault if this ruined her wedding. She should ask one of her other friends who can take a joke to sponsor her honeymoon. Please stand your ground. Have you already paid for everything? No, I did not pay for anything, and yes, it would have costed me over $10,000. From all the things that I calculated, it would have been around $11,600 or more. I only made such a big promise because she and I have been friends for a long time. And she was a little inconsiderate about others' feelings, but she was always good to me. Even though we were not best friends, she was one of the few good friends I had. And I know that sponsoring a trip to Hawaii might sound like a really stupid idea, but if I had enough money, I would not hesitate to sponsor a world tour. You may call me stupid, but I like doing stuff for people I love. But guess I befriended the wrong person. And I have always saved my money instead of spending it mindlessly. So, spending $10K for a friend didn't feel like a huge deal to me. Plus, I can gain that money back by only saving for 2 to 3 months, given my monthly earnings. She has been working really hard for her kids, and I saw it myself. I just wanted to give her a good vacation. The fact that you're single and make good money is the entire reason she invited you to lunch and talked about, oh, poor me, can't afford a honeymoon. That's all she really wanted from you. In other words, you did the right thing and she's not your friend. Last story. Am I the a-hole for giving my mom money in front of her relatives and telling her to decide who gets it? I'm visiting my mom's home country, and everywhere we go, someone needs something, and my mom expects me to pony up some cash. It is getting annoying. I came here to meet extended family and help my mom get around. After 3 days of this, I went to the bank and withdrew a large sum of cash. That evening, we were at a party with a bunch of her family, and it started. I said in my very poor Spanish that I would love to help all of them, but my mom knew them better and what they needed. So I gave her the wad of cash, said that was all the money I had to spare on this trip, and she could decide who deserved it most. I got drunk with my cousins and my mom was overwhelmed by her needy relatives. The next day, she made my hangover that much worse by yelling at me for the way I handled it. Apparently, she didn't have a spare minute without someone coming to her to explain why they needed money more than anyone else. She said she even started getting calls from people who hadn't come to the party, but heard she had money to help them. I said she had made my vacation into a charity trip, and then I went looking for more beer. She says that I behaved poorly and that I embarrassed her. Not the a-hole. Your relatives sound like leeches. No offense. I don't know why she was embarrassed. Her child was able to give her a large sum of money to help the family. That sounds like something to be proud of, or at least grateful for. She is your mom though. And try and talk to her eye to eye about how much you should be financially supporting everyone in the family. They aren't really. They're just on a very different socioeconomic stratum. I literally get paid more every day than a person on that country averages in 6 weeks. I understand why they see me how they do, but I would prefer it if they let me enjoy myself when I'm there too. If they don't have a relationship with you, host you when you come visit, or you only hear from them when they need money, you should be responsible for them financially. It sounds like you would simply stop hearing from a bunch of them if you stopped giving them money. It might be better to send your mom something like an allowance monthly to help the family, with the understanding that when you come to visit, you aren't asked for any. Not the a-hole. She expected you to hand over as much money as she felt the individual deserved, right? With her controlling your money? So you just gave her full control of the money and removed the middleman and let your relatives know who to ask if they needed money. It was a brilliant move to end her power play. I'm guessing mom didn't want the relatives to know she was determining who got how much because it would just complicate her life. Relatives hounding her for money with her sob stories, getting angry for not getting any or not enough, etc. Info. Did you have a conversation with your mother about how this made you feel before reaching this point? Before we left home, it isn't the first time. Then 100% not the a-hole. Your mother messed around and found out. Good on you.